back to Controlling Ideas. Today, I'm joined by Paul Woods, who is an LA-based designer and author. He leads Edenspiekermann. Am I even saying that right?
You are. I'm very impressed. Edenspiekermann, yes.
Ah, excellent. Well, Paul is leading Edenspiekermann's creative and technology teams as CEO, building products, brands, and service design work for clients in industries such as editorial, sustainability, and transportation. Over the course of his career, Paul has been at the helm of projects for companies such as Red Bull, Faraday Future, the City of Santa Monica, among others. One that I'll point out is in my time at Google, we actually worked on a project together, which we may talk about a little bit more. An advocate for importance of user-centric design, Paul places a hyper focus on the user in his work. He's a thought leader in the design and technology spaces. His bylines appear regularly in publications such as Fast Company, Adweek, and The Drum. In his spare time, Paul is an author, illustrator, and co-founder of the satirical news website Adloids. His best-selling book on creative culture, How to Do Great Work Without Being an Asshole, was published worldwide in 2019 via Lawrence King and has been translated into over 10 languages. Right now, he lives in Pasadena with his wife, Nora, and his very stubborn basset hound. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for such an eloquent intro. It was very flattering.
You're welcome. There's so much to cover off here, but really, I think what anybody who's clicked on this video really wants to know is, what is the story behind you in the inflatable donut?
The inflatable donut. That picture's been around for a while now. All right, so I'm an Irishman, and I am living in Los Angeles, and there's nothing more out of place than a pasty Irishman in Los Angeles in like 100-degree heat. So I thought we would do for a personal photo shoot for my book last year, or was the year before. I thought we'd just do a kind of a funny take on like this totally out of place kind of stuffy Irishman in this like funeral suit, and it is a funeral suit that I'm wearing, dressed up with all of these props in this Los Angeles studio with like all of these like inflatables that reflect Los Angeles, and just being totally awkward and out of place. And I mean, I think I thought it was funnier than it was, but I worked with a wonderful photographer on that, and I was happy with it, even if everyone else thought it was silly.
I love the fact that you're saying how out of place you are. It's like I'm down in Maryland right now. It's like 90 something degrees weather right now, and we are not built for this kind of thing. We are not built for sunshine and good weather. But how does a pasty Irishman find himself the CEO of a design agency in LA? Like, what was the moment in Ireland that you decided that design was the industry for you and the thing that you wanted to pursue?
Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to start with a joke there. A pasty Irishman walks into a bar in LA. It sounds like a joke. How did I start? Well, actually, I kind of ended up in design by accident. As of course you've known, we've known each other for many years, but you know that I actually started out as a musician, and I was a failing artist who dropped out of college, and I needed to make a few bucks on the side, because believe it or not, playing in a punk rock band will not make you rich, as you well know. And I ended up just kind of working in a record label, and building websites and doing record covers. And that's kind of how I accidentally ended up in design. Like, I mean, I don't know how I got that job. I had no experience in building websites or designing things. It was really just, hey, I went to art college for a year before I dropped out. I need a few bucks. All right, let's see if we can make this work. And I kind of went from there. And I describe it fondly as being on a kind of a world tour ever since. From going from Ireland to London to Berlin to New York, and now in Los Angeles. So it's quite a winding tale.
That's awesome. Yeah, so for people watching the video, you can probably tell we're both Irish, but we both worked at the record company together. That's when myself and Paul first met each other. There's a lot of overlap actually between being a musician and being sort of a designer. There is like an element of storytelling in both, so to speak. Would you agree?
For sure. I mean, that's absolutely true. I think musicians inherently are storytellers, and then I think like artists as well, and then by extension designers. I think what's interesting about a designer, I think a designer is a very it's a different type of storytelling because design is characterized by problem solving rather than self-expression. And I think it's a very interesting angle on storytelling that a designer will have, solving problems or using storytelling to solve a problem or to improve a service or do something very functional, that will be quite different to how a marketeer would tell a story to sell a product. So it's quite interesting. I think thinking of designers as storytellers, because it's a different type of storytelling, and it's a very interesting type of storytelling.
And with that, you mentioned like the function of it, and you started yourself with designing websites. There's so many new tools that are out there. Like my site, controllingideas.com, is actually built from Squarespace, for example. So with all of these tools coming about, like what is the role of a designer in this day and age, with all of these resources that people can use themselves?
That is a great question, and it's a soul searching question, I think, for a lot of designers, especially ones that grew up building websites. Because of course there's a zillion tools now that you can build an awesome website. And I think for a few years designers were getting a little bit stuck into just the executors of things, and they were all going on websites like Dribble and just showing how beautiful they could make a button or a form or some little interaction, when in reality, the designer is a problem solver. And what I think is happening now is that designers are starting to think, okay, well, there's lots of tools to design in air quotes, the frame, like Squarespace or something like that. So the shell of a website. And now we can really focus on, or the good ones at least, are starting to shift their focus onto the content and the storytelling itself, which traditionally wasn't the case. Traditionally, a lot of designers would just hand off, an empty website or an empty product, what it might be, and then that will go to a writer or a content strategist. And now designers are definitely being forced to think about content strategy, and it's part of our role, to do that. And I bring up an example. We were working on a website. It's not a website. It's a monolithic digital town hall for the city of Santa Monica with 22,000 pieces of content. And there is no way that a design team can build a website like that or structure a website. We spend a year on content strategy and strategy for this website without thinking about how we're going to take people through this experience, through storytelling, through design, of course, but really how we structure the content. And what's interesting about designing content, and especially for something like the city of Santa Monica, is that it has such a functional use in people's lives. The contents that you're creating and the stories that you're telling are doorways into services. Like, you have people will Google something like, how do I've just got a parking ticket. How do I pay this? I'm a visitor to the city, and we've all been there, and you're freaking out. And then you Google this, and then the first thing you're going to land on, of course, is the city website. And our role as designers in this case is to create a very clear and succinct way of structuring information and a narrative. Don't worry, you can pay your parking ticket in 3 steps. Same with a permit. Don't worry, I'll be at about 27 steps to get the most basic permit, but here's how you do it using content and narrative to make a process simple. Like, that's probably also something that we worked on together, if you remember, a few years ago at Google.
Yeah, we put together a video on data-driven attribution, which is not an easy topic to talk about. And I think I think our budget at the time, we had enough to like cover off like a 2.5-minute video, was
Yeah.
it? But I think that's a great example as well of like where you kind of stepped in and really guided myself and the team to like really get down to the central message that was important. Like, could you actually talk about like how you helped us like get to that point and really be able to come up with a video that you'll see actually linked in the description here, that it's actually really like impactful for such a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, data-driven attribution, as the name suggests, is not a very easy topic to explain, but it's a best-selling product from Google, and it's something that is an incredibly powerful tool. And I mean, I need to dust off my memory a little bit on this, but basically, it's a way of attributing certain my brain is going rusty. It's a way to attribute value to how people click. So like, anyway, getting into the nerdy details. What what's more important about it is that this is a complex tool that's very powerful for non-technical people. So marketeers and Dave and his team at the time, you guys were selling this to huge companies and agencies. And of course, the big question on everyone's lips, which I don't know if anyone actually asked it, but what the fuck is this thing? And you guys knew what it was. And we looked at this and we said, hey, well, look, this is a complex topic. And our role as designers here is to take this and treat it like we would with something like the city of Santa Monica. Think of it in a very functional way. How can we take something complex, strip out all the bullshit, and make it into a very, very clear narrative? And we've done that in a few ways. Firstly, it was a very disarming visual style. So we created this very human suite of characters. There was this, I can't even remember the names, Bob or something like that. I think we had a name for him. And then we had this lady as well with these two characters and then we infused this very technical product with a very human story. We had this one guy who wanted to buy a gift for his mom, and it was very, very simple. We just took him through, and it's kind of funny in parts. And I think what it done very successfully was taking this extremely complex topic, just demonstrating the value, and then very haptically explaining how this worked in a way that a marketeer would look at this and go, oh, this is fucking cool. This is a great product. You know, maybe we should be doing this for our clients. And we done that by making it easy, stripping out the bullshit and putting a human narrative into it that people could relate to.
And you know, I think like everybody that watches that video afterwards will see like just how accessible that you've made it, and you know, how much you were able to kind of trim the fat, so to speak, of like getting rid of all of the technical jargon and that kind of thing. I think that's a big mistake that I see a lot of like marketers and sellers try to do, where they try to add on so much onto what they're trying to do. Like I see so many websites in particular where you go onto and you're like, there's a load of like buzzwords. It's almost like all of the industry jargon that you see, like synergies and solutions, and like you're just kind of sitting there going, but what does this actually do? So it's interesting to see how you just kind of think about like, okay, how can we simplify this down for the user?
Yeah, and I think it's a great point that you bring up, because I think that's actually where a lot of design-driven storytelling, where designers are all about reducing something to its essence. Like, I mean, it's what Steve Jobs and John Nye have been doing for years and years at Apple. Is great design is a method of reduction down to the very core. And I mean, it sounds easy, but that's actually tremendously difficult or not difficult, but it requires a lot of expertise to reduce something to the right core things. And I do think that's why designers do make great storytellers, especially when it's explaining something complex or explaining something that's you know, is difficult to grasp. There's nothing, it doesn't make you smarter to use big words or to make something complex or put in bullshit. It makes you smarter if you can take something incredibly complex like data-driven attribution and present it in a way that your grandmother would understand. It sounds like a fucking cliche, but it's true. If your grandmother or maybe your brother can understand this, you know, data-driven attribution, you've probably done a pretty good job at presenting this thing, like on a website or a video or whatever the application might be.
That's so true. I think like some of the best marketing messages are just the simplest ones at times, and some of the best websites are the ones where you just know exactly what you need to do. You mentioned like, you know, the fact that you yourself, like, and designers in general, are storytellers. Of course, you are an author as well. You have a best-selling book, How to Do what is it? How to Do Great Work Without Being an Asshole, which we will link to from the bottom here. Like we'll link to a page where you can purchase that book. Um, you really tell the story about it. It's almost like a guide through your entire industry. So um, I'd love to kind of get a sense from you, like what is like one thing from that book or one learning that you would like anybody that is on the outside of design looking in, like what would you like, what myth busting would you like to do? What piece insightful piece would you like to give people that we can see in your book, how not to be an asshole?
Oh, I can't give too much away. That will be, giving it all. No, I mean, look, designing the creative industry and the tech industry and every industry is a people-driven business. And I wrote that book because I had this big debate actually with a coworker when I was working in New York about the necessity of working long hours. And we were doing a pitch at the time, and I remember I was saying, hey, we don't do this. When I worked in Germany, I worked in Berlin for nearly 5 years, and they have a remarkable way of producing great work without doing long hours. And that this person was very much in the vein of, oh, well, I mean, this is New York, you got to do all these long hours. And I was like, no, it's not the case. And anyway, the result of this conversation was me thinking, well, maybe there's something interesting there about creative culture, because the bottom line is that humans do not perform well when they're burnt out, when they're tired, when they're, been working, 60, 70-hour weeks. It just doesn't make sense. But yet the creative industry has been for many, many years being built on this myth that you've got to do long hours, you've got to deal with assholes, you've got to do all of this or endure all of this stuff if you want to be successful, which is absolutely not the case. And that's kind of where the book came about. And I mean, I think that the biggest topics in there, the biggest advice is that like sustainable working is the only game in town now. I mean, even throughout this whole coronavirus shit, I mean, it's more important than ever that people can balance work and life. And I mean, I'm not saying we ever get it right. I mean, we're going to be working this probably this weekend on a big website launch, but by and large, you need to have a balance. Like, do you know that people are only productive for 3 consecutive hours and the productivity goes way down? It's like a scientific fact, and yet modern society is structured in such a way that people are encouraged to work, hours and hours and work longer and longer. And yet, I mean, we're only humanly programmed to work for 3 hours a day, or for 3 hours at a consecutive time, which is crazy.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I also find that like, I try to I work with like teams all over the world, and like the amount of times that they try to push themselves to work like extended hours so that they can dial into calls like late at night and this kind of thing, and try to work all day on something. And one thing that I've been trying to say to people is like, sometimes if you're working on something, it's actually a really good thing to like, if you're working really hard on it for an hour, is to step away from it for even like a full 24 hours. Like actually take a step on it, step away, sleep on it, think about it, and you come back reinvigorated. You come back with new ideas, new thoughts, and a new set of eyes on it, so to speak. So you're more productive by taking the time away than you would be just sitting there staring at it,
Totally. Like I always say that the problem that you work for like 4 hours at midnight on, you'll probably solve the next day in 30 seconds. That's like, let's be honest, that's 99% of the case that's true.
Well, Paul, I know that you're an exceptionally busy man, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. A final question from me is, what is next for Paul Woods?
That's a good question. I mean, not getting coronavirus is probably next, is the most important thing on my agenda right now. But no, you know what's interesting? I just finished my new book. Literally, I submitted the manuscript to the publisher on the 24th of February. And I was locked down for January and February, self-enclosed lockdown before coronavirus, to write this damn book, this follow-up to the Asshole book. And my publisher gave me a really aggressive timeline, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna lock myself in January and February. I'm not gonna go out. It's like, it's not if you're familiar with the book, they're not huge books, but they're I mean, there's still like 35,000 words or something like that. And they always have about 70 illustrations. It takes about 3 months heads down. And then, of course, I finished the book 24th of February. And I'm like, great, I can go out now. You know, the book is finished. I'm going to go travel. And then, of course, everything shuts down. So anyway, long-winded answer. There is a new book coming August next year. It's very exciting. I can't say too much about it right now, but it is coming in August. And it's the follow-up. It's a prequel, if you will, to the Asshole book. And
Well, it sounds like then anybody watching this needs to go out and buy the Asshole book.
I think they definitely should.
In our description below here. I love doing this. It like, even though we haven't actually like put anything in yet.
But it looks very professional.
Oh, thank you. I'm hopefully if like these videos actually take off, I may even get more professional and actually buy a webcam rather than just using my laptop.
Very authentic though. It's very all the time, you know, the footage. You know, it's very Corona appropriate.
Appreciate it. Paul, thank you so much. And best of luck with the new book. We're excited to see it next year. But in the meantime, do you have a website that people can check out some of your work or any more information about what you do?
Yes, you can go to www.theassholebook.com.
Fantastic. Paul Woods, thank you so much.